This week's module, Module 5, will discuss student involvement and engagement. An important note I wanted to make sure you had was regarding CAS standards. CAS stands for the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education, and this is a group of higher education professionals that meet and put out what is kind of a universally accepted book of best practices and learning outcomes for different areas of higher education, including and especially student affairs. This is an invaluable resource for you, and it will have learning outcomes for every area that we are discussing in this class, and will be explained in very clear and concise ways. So absolutely get you a copy of that and make sure that as you're working on your programs, you're using that as a reference. In regard to student involvement and engagement, another note is everything should be learning outcome focused. So many times we think about student involvement and engaging simply being a student having friends on campus or going to an event or to a party. And while that is a part of it, everything in student affairs and every aspect of the student's experience in higher education should have some type of outcome that furthers them academically, socially, or intrapersonally in regards to their professional calling and, if they desire, their spiritual walk and identification. There are different aspects of student involvement and engagement. There's academic, and there's interpersonal leadership and peer importance. And we will talk about a few of these in the next slides. Examples of academic involvement and engagement include clubs and organizations focusing on academic and professional interests. That could include engineering student groups that are aligned with a specific faculty member, supporting them as they continue to study to become an engineer, building robots or solving problems for national conferences, etc. That is a huge part of student involvement and engagement, and you see how it can not only build their academic abilities, it can build a professional network and professional abilities, but also it simply builds community with people who are like-minded and focusing on the same things. Faculty have to be involved in student involvement and engagement. Absolutely in the academic aspects of it, but certainly in the outside aspects of it too. Much like with admissions and orientation, the faculty are going to be the students who, or the individuals who typically see the students every day. They are known as the experts in the field that the student is studying and hopes to one day go into. To have them involved in not only in class, but also out of class programs, discussions, and community will help the student engage with the academic aspect of their college experience, and also helps the faculty better know students, what they need, who they are, and how to support them. But again, many clubs and organizations focusing on academic and professional interests can be huge benefits to students as they continue in their degrees. There are also examples of social and leadership involvement and engagement. As you have looked through many of the theories regarding student affairs, student development, student success, etc., we've mentioned Chickering and Reiser's vectors. There's 7 vectors, which helps a student understand their identity, but also develop into autonomous individuals. Pasquarella and Terenzini in how students affect college, or excuse me, how college affects students, has mentioned many theories regarding student engagement and involvement and how it further causes students to grow and change. And student affairs have a large part of that. There are traditionally fraternities and sororities that have supported students engaging socially and giving them incredible leadership opportunities. Earlier in the 2000s, George Koo, who was a professor at Indiana University, is kind of considered one of the, along with Pasquarella and Terenzini and the Astons and so many others, are considered kind of the real, I guess you could say, GOATs, the greatest of all time in regard to higher education research. And in doing NESE, which stands for the National Study of Student Engagement, Koo and his colleagues found that individuals who are involved in Greek letter social organizations would typically do more community service than students who were not, had higher GPAs than students who were not, and networked into jobs quicker than students who were not a part of that. Now, there are arguments about, is that in relation to socioeconomic status? Does that kind of tell us a lot about students who maybe are a little more outgoing and are looking for those opportunities? There are all kind of questions in relation to that, but um, sororities and fraternities are at most college campuses. They have ebbed and flow in regards to how many members they have, but they can be a dynamic opportunity for students to socially engage and have wonderful leadership and service experiences while in college. There are um, service-based Greek letter organizations. There are traditionally African American Greek-based sororities and fraternities. And a benefit of many of these is the GPA requirements that students have to be in them, the, again, amount of networking and social integration that happens with them, and the tie to the university that alumni have because of their experiences with sororities and fraternities. However, there's a downside to some of these as well, including hazing, and at some schools, including racism, and not truly allowing all students the opportunity to be a part of a fraternity or sorority because of cultural values, inappropriate cultural values that some of these organizations may hold. So the benefits outweigh the non-benefits when fraternities and sororities are done well. And when you think of social involvement and engagement and leadership, you absolutely think of fraternities and sororities. Also, SGA, or student government associations, are a wonderful avenue for students to learn leadership, for them to cause change on college campuses, and for them to build networks for the future. Typically, these are housed under student activities or in the Dean of Students or Vice President of Student Affairs or Student Life's office. And these are, of course, are elected individuals, but at different schools, they have an enormous amount of power to shape the culture and structure of institutions. There are other various social clubs and organizations that help students to find their place, to build a network in a community, but also to form leadership and understand who they are to a greater extent, further engaging, working through the 7 vectors as we've talked about, or understanding their identity in regards to racial ethnicity or religious affiliation or needs and desires. And finally, there are athletics. Campus recreation is a huge part of many students' experiences. One president that I worked for used to always tell the story of his son and how the first couple of years this individual just was kind of searching and hadn't really found his niche at the college where he was attending. But then he got involved in campus recreation. He played on a flag football team and a intramural basketball team. And he really found a group of friends, one that he connected with, but also they connected regarding majors and disciplines. And now that individual is also a university professor and doing incredibly well. And so every aspect of the university experience can be meaningful, can have learning outcomes regarding academics, social and professional or spiritual calling, and if done well, will benefit the student not only as a student, but also as an alumni uh, working in their profession and looking back at their collegiate experience. A few professional organizations and places where you can find data regarding student involvement and engagement, because as I've said, it is very multi-layered. It happens inside and outside of the classroom. It happens in all three aspects of who a student is and how they develop. Specific areas you can go to find wonderful information is, of course, the NESE, which is done out of Indiana University. Dr. George Q again does that. And that is the National Survey of Student Engagement. Typically, they survey freshmen and senior students to see who students are coming in and how their experiences are affecting them. Of course, which you're involved in first year experience or orientation, that can make a huge difference in what you do and how you do it. But also with seniors, understanding how have they learned to think better, to write better, to do philosophy and math equations better, and also how have they formed as people in community, and are they ready for the professional world. So I would certainly encourage you, if you don't do that at your school, to work with those who are over data and assessment to see if you can. And if you don't, then see if you can access the outcomes from other schools and learn lessons from that. Also, there is NACA, which is the National Association for Campus Activities. Wonderful place to be a part of and network. There's NERSA, which is an organization very much focused on campus recreation. Also, they've started in the last 20 years a lot of focus on outdoor adventure type things, which many students are engaged in, and actually many dissertations have been written on in regards to how those types of programs develop students in regards to community and their leadership. And then there's the book, which is kind of the seminal book of student involvement and engagement, called How College Affects Students. Again, Pasquarello and Terenzini wrote this. Their first edition came out before 2000, but they revamped it in 2005, which is the most recent version, to take into account changes that have happened over the years. That to me is a must in regards to having a book on your bookshelf that you intermittently look through and think about, and hopefully maybe some of you will be a part of updating that book as college and students and learning outcomes continue to change.